Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. There are lots of jokes out there about children learning the Lord's Prayer and getting it wrong, and by far most of the jokes center around the line about "Hallowed be thy name." For example, there is the joke about the mother overhearing her child praying and saying, "Our Father who art in heaven, how do you know my name?" The best part of that joke is that in God's love and grace for us, God does know our names. This week we have been focused on women in the Bible story who are all named Mary. They are different women and they have different stories, but even though the two we focus on today have small stories, they are still important. A couple of months ago, I did a week of Pastor Gary Live episodes on humor in the Bible. One of the stories I told then was about Rhoda. Let me remind you what I said then. In Acts 12, describing the days of the early church, we are told of King Herod wreaking violence against the followers of Jesus. In fact, the chapter describes that one of the disciples, James, the brother of John, was killed with the sword, the first of the 12 disciples to be martyred. Peter, among others, was arrested. As the chapter continues, we find out that Herod planned to bring Peter out to be killed, but the very night that was decided, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers and bound with two chains. Suddenly a light appeared in the cell, and an angel told Peter to get up and go quickly. The chains fell from his wrists, and Peter followed the angel out past two guard posts, and the gate at the prison door opened on its own before them. Peter didn't think it was real, that it was only a vision. Suddenly the angel was gone, and Peter found himself standing in the street all alone. He hurried to where the disciples were hiding behind locked doors and knocked. That's when the humor happens. A servant woman named Rhoda came to the door with fear, thinking it might be the soldiers coming to arrest them all. She asked who was at the door, and when Peter answered, she recognized his voice, and in her excitement, she ran to tell the other disciples that Peter was there. But she forgot to open the door for Peter. So there Peter was, out in the open, a new escapee, under threat for his life, knocking and trying to get in. Maybe we can see ourselves in Rhoda's excitement and chuckle at how she forgot to open the door. Now, that is a humorous story, something you might see on the Three Stooges or the Keystone Cops. But the story seems to focus on a woman named Rhoda, and we're supposed to be talking about women named Mary. Well, a woman named Mary comes into this story in a small detail that I have neglected to tell you. Acts 12:12 tells us that the place where the disciples were hiding was in the home of a woman named Mary. This Mary was clearly a believer and was providing safe haven for the followers of Jesus. The only other thing we know about her is that the Bible tells us she was the mother of someone named John, also known as Mark. This John Mark is believed to be the author of the Gospel of Mark, the first gospel to be written, and which also served as a foundation for the Gospels of Matthew and Luke as well. Mary, the mother of John Mark, made her home a place of faith in Jesus. The last Mary we want to look at today is someone we know little about. We find her mentioned in the last chapter of the book of Romans when Paul is offering his appreciation and thanks to some of the Christians in Rome who have done special things. Perhaps we need to remember that Paul had not yet visited Rome when he wrote his letter, But he had become aware of those people and the things they had done in support of the church there and in spreading the news about Jesus. In Romans 16:6 we read, "Greet Mary, who has worked very hard among you." What we surmise from this is that there was a woman in Rome named Mary, and in some profound and important way she did great work among the church, enough that Paul singled her out for praise. And that's all we know. But that doesn't mean that that is all that has been speculated. Some have argued that this Mary is the same person as Mary, the mother of John Mark. Others speculate that this was Mary Magdalene, who had made her way to Rome. A few even think that this verse refers to Mary, the mother of Jesus, who had somehow ended up in Rome. All these are speculation, and there is no evidence for any of it. What there is evidence of is that God works through all of us, even those of little renown. And the best evidence says simply that this was a woman named Mary who lived in Rome, who came to believe in Jesus and offered herself in the work of God and for the good of other believers. Just like there are countless people in the church now who are faithful and offer themselves for the good of the church and others. So, here at the end of 2 weeks, one where we focused on people named Joseph, and one in which we looked at women named Mary, maybe it's time to borrow the Nike slogan. Don't be like Mike. Be like Joseph. Be like Mary. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.